Regarding a woman traveling without a close relation, such as a husband or parent, brother, somebody she can't marry, usually referred to in Arabic as a mahram. The scholars have differed on this topic based on their analyses of the various statements of the Prophet, peace be upon him, in the hadith collections. While there's the general understanding by most scholars that the Quranic statement, Ar-Rijalu Qawwamuna ala Nisa, that men are responsible for taking care of their women, it is understood to mean also responsible for their safety. And that concern for safety is at the core of the debate on this topic. There are some statements by the Prophet in a number of hadith where the Prophet said a woman should not travel without a mahram. In other hadith, it is more specific. One hadith says a woman should not travel for a distance of 1 day and 1 night without a mahram. In another hadith, it says 2 days and 2 nights. In another hadith, it says 3 days and 3 nights. In another hadith, it says more than 3 days. And so scholars have differed. Some of the Hanafi school have said so long as the distance is not more than 3 days and there's safety on the journey, then a woman may travel for that distance. However, other scholars viewed other hadith of the Prophet, peace be upon him, as reasons to understand better the wisdom behind this prohibition. Some companions were sitting and complaining about the level of poverty and particularly the level of insecurity. And in a hadith with a number of versions of the hadith, the Prophet, peace be upon him, is reported to have said, if Allah is to spare the lives of any one of you, Islam will spread so far that it would be safe enough for a woman to travel from Hira in Iraq to Mecca. In another hadith it says from Medina or Yathrib to Hira with nothing to fear on the way except Allah and no mahram with her. In other hadith it says she would be able to travel that distance without her husband and without a mahram. In other versions, without a mahram or traveling alone and nothing to fear except the wolves on the way. So what we find in this hadith, as discussed by Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani and Ibn Hazm, was that this hadith was making it clear that the reason for mahram was tied to circumstances of safety. That where there was sufficient safety, things would be good enough that a woman could travel without a mahram. So in their view, the purpose of a mahram was really about safety. Consequently, scholars would differ regarding what was the best form of mahram. Generally, it was agreed that a husband or a brother or a father was usually the best to take care of a woman who wanted to travel. In other contexts, however, some would say it should be with a group of women or a group of men. Some would say a group of women could serve the function of a mahram. Some would suggest a group of men and women. Scholars therefore differed on what constituted the ideal function of a mahram or what constituted best safety for the woman. So because of that, you find some scholars saying if the journey was an obligatory one like Hajj, then a woman could travel without a mahram. Others said no, the need for a mahram was an obligation. Others differed on the age of the woman. If she was older, she didn't need a mahram. If she was younger, she would need a mahram because there was a likelihood or greater likelihood that she may be abused on the way. So because of the concern for safety, scholars like Ibn Taymiyyah, Imam Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, and a number of scholars felt, including those we've quoted earlier, that so long as there is safety, a woman did not need a mahram. While they would still consider it preferable, they would still consider it permissible for a woman to travel without a mahram. However, The Prophet also encouraged men to travel as groups, not as individuals, and some consider that also for the sake of safety. When it comes to moving in public, in a city, going to the market or short distances, it is clear from all the hadith that there was no prohibition of women going to the mosque in Medina, going to their farms, going to the marketplace, where there was sufficient public nearby, or where it was easy and reasonably easy enough for a woman to get assistance if she needed. There was no need for a mahram. So women were not needed in public places. Consequently, when it comes to traveling, if we go with the opinion of those who consider safety as what is most paramount, then they would consider the distance from a city to an airport as not far enough to need a mahram. And the airport being a public place, the crowd there did the role of mahram. The security did the role of a mahram. That on the plane it was a public place, and where they arrive at another airport, it's also a public place, and it is close enough to a place of safety. So for those who are concerned mainly about safety, and that's what they see as the objective, they take it a woman does not need a mahram, even if it would be preferable, does not need one where there is sufficient safety. Even scholars who consider it unacceptable for a woman to travel without a mahram would make exception if there was a haja, if there was a need, not necessarily a darura, a life-threatening need, but if she had to go for studies. Studies were haja, they were not tahsini, but they were not darura, they were not dire necessities either. So where there was a haja, scholars would allow a woman to travel even if they felt that under normal circumstances they would prohibit such things. Others would allow it because of the existence of difference of opinions among scholars on the topic. So the key thing to bear in mind is, as the ummah historically was expanding and getting safer, the scholars felt there was less importance of having mahram. We note from the hadith during the caliphate of Umar bin Khattab, when the wives of the Prophet in his last year, when the wives of the Prophet wanted to go for Hajj, Umar nominated Abdurrahman bin Auf and Uthman to be their mahram, even though it is not permissible for us to regard them as mahram, because it's not permissible for the wives of the Prophet to expose their aura to these men. So we have in the life of the Sahaba and in the life of the Prophet statements and evidence that indicate that the role of a mahram is that of safety. And once safety has been achieved, it becomes less of a criteria or a necessity in the views of scholars who, of course, have differed on this topic. And Allah knows best.